Hello, my name is Mr. Shalek. I want to welcome each and every one of you to physics class. Besides teaching all of the physics classes here at Palisades Charter High School, I also administer the independent study course Astronomy AB. Unfortunately, I can't welcome you all physically here to my classroom, and that's of course because of the ongoing problem that the world faces, the current pandemic. Unfortunately, this problem is going to be with us for several months at least into the future, so it's doubtful that I will be seeing any of you physically in my classroom anytime soon. Notice that I used the word problem. I did so for the following reason. You may be wondering why you've enrolled in a physics class. After all, the physics classes do have a reputation for being difficult. Well, the goal of a physics class is not necessarily to turn all of you into physicists and engineers, although that would be nice. Instead, it's to turn you into a problem solver. Here's how you can begin to understand the importance of problem solving. What I'm going to do here on the lower board behind me is I'm going to divide it in half, like so. And here's what I'm going to use as a dividing line. It varies a little bit from year to year, but the average income for a family of 4 in the United States is just over $50,000 per year. So let me use that number, $50,000 per year, as a means of dividing the board in half. Okay, and now on the left-hand side of the board, I'm going to briefly list some jobs that typically earn less than $50,000 per year. As I do, you're going to begin to notice that these jobs begin to fall into a couple of different categories. So here are some typical jobs that typically do not earn a very good living. For example, let's say that you work in a store. If you work in a store as a cashier or a clerk, you are in what is called retail. Let's say, for example, that you work in a restaurant, whether it be in fast food, as some of you probably do while you're in high school, or later on as a waiter or a waitress. In addition to these types of jobs where you're interacting directly with the public, there are other types of jobs that typically earn less than $50,000 per year. Most of these types of jobs involve labor of some sort, whether it be unskilled or skilled labor. So for example, this would be like, say, working as a garbage man, working as a custodian, working as a landscaper, working in a factory. Working in a factory, for example, where you may work your way up some sort of unionized pay scale and then eventually end up over here on the right-hand side of the board. That is making money that is more than $50,000 per year. Those types of jobs, however, what are usually referred to as skilled labor, well, they usually take quite a bit of time to work your way up the unionized pay scale to the right-hand side of the board. If you think about the jobs that I've listed thus far and jobs like them, you'll begin to notice that they fall into basically two categories. There is, first of all, what is called the service industry. In the service industry, you are serving the public. You are interacting directly with the public in some manner. So, for example, you work in the service industry. If your job requires you to say the following things, do you want fries with that, or will that be cash or charge? If you have to ask a question like that when you serve the public, you're working in the service industry. Can you guess approximately what percentage of the U.S. workforce works in the service industry? It may surprise you. It's over 70%. Over 70% of everybody out there in America who is working a job is working in the service industry. 70% of the U.S. workforce. But then when it comes to manual labor of some sort, whether it be skilled or unskilled, typically those types of jobs are referred to as blue-collar jobs. Now, as I've mentioned, however, with some blue-collar jobs, skilled labor, for example, you can work your way up some sort of unionized pay scale, and then after a certain amount of time, earn a pretty good living for yourself and your family, and end up over here on the right-hand side of the board. However, typically on the left-hand side of the board, we have these types of jobs in the service industry and also blue-collar work. And now let me briefly list over here on the right-hand side of the board jobs that typically make more than $50,000 per year. For example, medicine. Medicine. Of course, this is all important right now, as basically the entire medical field worldwide is now currently working on the problem of the pandemic. In addition to medicine, we have academics. Believe it or not, I'm actually over here on the right-hand side of the board. Law, business, finance, engineering, etc. If you look at the types of jobs that I've listed here on the right-hand side of the board and jobs like them, these types of jobs are typically referred to as professions. Now, as I've briefly been describing here, jobs on both sides of the board, you may have been wondering to yourself, okay, well, what about professional athletes? Or what about really high-paid actors? Because after all, we're living right here in the middle of Hollywood. What about those types of jobs? Let me briefly discuss those. Let me use the example of professional sports. Specifically, the example of the NFL. Under normal circumstances, the NFL season would be starting very soon. Quite frankly, it is doubtful that there will be any football played this year. We're probably not going to see any football until next year in some meaningful form. But for example, under normal circumstances, the NFL would be starting up their play soon. Okay, for those of you that are sports fans, how many NFL teams are there? There are 32. Also for you sports fans, what is the active number of players on the roster at any time? In other words, these are players that actually have a contract, they put on a uniform, and they could play in a game. Well, it's just over 50. So then therefore, if you multiply the numbers together, approximately 50 players per team, and then approximately 30 teams in the league, we're talking about roughly 1,500 players or so that are playing in the NFL at any one time. Now, if you do play in the NFL, well, the average salary is pretty good. It's over $1 million per year. This is the league minimum all the way up to the league superstars. If you average it all out, the average salary is just over $1 million per year. That's the average salary. So you may be saying to yourself, well, that's pretty good. I should go play in the NFL. Well, here's the caveat. Here's the kicker, if you will. Do you know approximately what the average career length is in the NFL? And not just in the NFL, but in the other sports leagues as well. The numbers are similar. It's only about 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 year career. If you find that somewhat surprising, here's something that you can do under normal circumstances if the NFL was playing. You could say, pick a random player on some team that you have never heard of, and then follow that player over the course of the season and into the next. It's doubtful that you will see that player again anytime soon. It's doubtful that you'll see that player next season. So there is only an average career length of 2 to 3 years in the NFL, and the numbers are very similar, of course, in the other professional sports leagues. Now, underneath the NFL, we have Division I college football, NCAA teams, where you have a number of players on each team ultimately trying to make it to the NFL. Approximately how many Division I college football programs are there in the United States? It's in the neighborhood of a couple of hundred. So then therefore, if you're talking about the total number of college players right now playing college football, it's maybe 10 times or so this amount right here. So roughly we'll say 15 to 20,000 players playing college football right now. So maybe 15,000 college football players. And then underneath that, of course, you have probably tens of thousands, if not more, of high school kids playing high school football right now. Some of them quite talented, some of them ultimately thinking about playing in the NFL. Let's say 100,000. So if you're saying to yourself, oh wow, I'm going to become a professional football player and I'm going to make lots of money, I'm going to have a long career and I'm going to be set for life. Well, take a look at the numbers that you face here. Hundreds of thousands of high school players, tens of thousands of college football players, and then only 1,500 players actually playing in the NFL at any one time. And of those 1,500 players, most of them are only there for a very short period of time. So then therefore, if you say to yourself, I'm going to make lots of money by playing into the NFL, well, take a look at all of these numbers. Are the odds with you? No, the odds are exceedingly poor. The odds are also similar, for example, for very high-paid actors here in the entertainment industry. Let's pick a movie star, say Tom Cruise. How many Tom Cruises are there in the world? There's one. Okay, how many people right now are working in this town trying to become the next Tom Cruise? Tens of thousands, if not more. What are actually most of those people doing right now to earn a living? They're working in the service industry. Here throughout all of the restaurants and bars in Los Angeles, if you go up to one of those people working in one of those bars or restaurants, odds are that person is also trying to work as an actor and ultimately make it in the entertainment industry. So then therefore, if you go into the entertainment industry with the aim of becoming a movie star, good luck, more power to you. But once again, the odds are not with you. But take a look over here on the right-hand side of the board. If you have the right skill set, your odds of making it here to the right-hand side of the board are very good. So what is the skill set that the people on the right-hand side of the board have in the context of doing their jobs, whereas the people over here on the left-hand side of the board do not? It's solving problems. Consider, for example, the degree of problem that somebody working in retail has to solve. Basically, somebody who is working as a cashier or a clerk has to just ensure that the customer is given the correct change, and that's it. That's basically the problem that that person has to solve. Somebody who's working in the service industry has a simple problem that is very repetitive, and they basically just solve that simple problem over and over and over in the course of doing their job. Consider, for example, however, the degree of problem that the medical field faces right now. For example, epidemiologists. These are the doctors that specifically work on solving the problem of epidemics and pandemics. This is a problem that is of an enormous challenge. It basically faces the entire world, and it's probably not going to be ultimately solved anytime soon, for perhaps a year or more. So consider the degree of problem that the people working in the medical field today have to solve when dealing with the pandemic. So then ultimately, the goal of this class is as follows, is to train you how to solve problems. Because if you could solve problems, then you can end up over here on the right-hand side of the board. If you can solve problems, then you can do anything. That's the purpose of learning physics, that is to solve problems. Once again, I want to welcome each and every one of you here to class. What I want you to do is I want you to look through the remainder of the files and all of the links that I've posted for you in today's folder. Make sure that you follow the directions associated with all of those links and files. If you have any questions at any time during class, here's how you can easily reach me. The easiest way to reach me, quite frankly, is to message me through Schoology, and I will answer your message as quickly as I can. I will also conduct very few live sessions with class via Zoom, but they will occur for 15 minutes at the end of class for every scheduled class period. I will not be lecturing to you during these live Zoom sessions. I will not be delivering content. Instead, I will be answering any questions that you may have. These live Zoom sessions are not required for class. So if at any time that you have a question and you are going to be taking a look at the scheduled live Zoom sessions that I have scheduled for you, then by all means you can drop in and ask me a question live via Zoom. I will also be holding office hours on Thursday afternoons via Zoom at 1:45 p.m. for 45 minutes. So you can also interact with me in that manner via Zoom through office hours. So that's all of the Zooming that I will be doing for this class. I will not be lecturing. I will not be delivering content by Zoom. Once again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I welcome you to physics class. And also for those of you enrolled in Astronomy AB, I welcome you as well.